scrimmage notes, so great transition. We're going to pass it over to Mr. Swolderquist here. Talk about it, man. Obviously, first scrimmage was it yesterday? It was yesterday.
Yeah.
A lot of hype playing, obviously, in the stadium. And the big thing that they talked about yesterday is kind of taking the training wheels off, right? Allowing these guys to play on the field, not having the coaches holding their hand, letting them see how they communicate with everybody. That was kind of a big takeaway for me. Is something we don't think about as, fans, of how much of a difference practicing each day to playing a scrimmage. If it's the first time you're on your own, how are you going to react? How the temptations, getting frustrated, getting pissed off. You're getting burned, right? When everybody's out there watching, you get burned on the practice field, but it's a little different when you're in the field. Emotions might start to rile up a little bit. So what you got for us, Swolderquist?
I've been hanging out.
Yeah, these come straight from the Gator Collective message boards. They're not the detailed versions. They're not all of them because you have to pay to get the rest of them. And I had permission from Jen to share some of these, not all of them. So I will say Jakeem Jackson still getting a lot of play. He's still making plays. Khalil Jackson actually had a nice touchdown from Jack Miller. Max Brown hit Aiden Mazzell, that video that we saw out there on Twitter. Caleb Douglas looking pretty good there as well. Marcus Burke caught a slant that went about 80 yards. I think they tackled him there at the 1 yard line. Arliss Boardingham still looks very, very good. Always getting open out there. He's been hearing a lot of Arliss Boardingham in these scrimmages. Now, well, I guess it's one scrimmage, but the practices beforehand. Montrell Johnson had a 50-plus yard run once again. He's had an explosive run just about every time they've been out there on the field. Desmond Watson made some plays as well. Stonewall, the guy at the line of scrimmage. And Shamar James, Jalen Kimber also had good days there. I know Allie, she may have more notes, and if she wants to add to this, she can.
Yeah, so I heard that basically the star of the show was the D line, but that the offensive line, the new size is super impressive. That's something that you guys have probably talked about the last couple of weeks. I know I've talked about that. From a depth standpoint, the offensive line is in such a better position than it was. I heard Justice Boone, who's playing an edge position, looked really good. Jason Marshall Jr. is another person that has been getting rave reviews, the cornerback position, and then Shamar James. And I did hear in general that the linebackers as a whole looked really good. And that's something I think Gator fans are really going to want to hear because linebackers were pretty terrible last year in general. So if there's some good improvement there, that, that is a positive sign. But I think, the most important thing to keep in mind with scrimmages and spring practice in general is that these guys aren't game ready yet. That's not the purpose of spring. The purpose of spring is to see how everybody gels, how they work together, kind of test guys out in different positions. The positions they're playing right now may not even be the positions that we see them in for fall camp and moving forward. But spring is really like a teachable moment, right? And so I do think that if you don't hear amazing reviews out of spring scrimmages, that isn't something that Gator fans need to freak out about.
Interesting to note, too, again, a lot of praise from the defense, but Dave just ripped off a ton of great offensive stats, too. So you always ask the question, who's sucking, right? Is it the defense? Is it the offense? But it's good to see, honestly, both parts having success. You would expect that. It's going to happen. But I love hearing Montrell breaking off for 80-yard runs. I think we see what he does against a great defense. It lets us know that, hey, that O-line's working. I think if you had to say, hey, the D-line's coming in with a little more beef to it, the O-line had a little bit more of a reset. So if Montrell's breaking off 50-yard tackles, he's either running really well or he's being blocked very well or a little bit of both. So I think that's great to hear. I think it's exciting. Like you said, it's hard they're not game ready. I think that's something to really to hone in on look, these guys kind of been off for a little bit. They're in shape, but not necessarily game ready, which is a lot different. So real quick, we got almost 200 people in here. So love it on a Wednesday afternoon in the middle of March. Well, I guess it's the end of March now, which is fantastic. So if you guys are hanging out, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and show some love. Really appreciate that. Anything else, Swolderquist?
I was just going to say, you also got to think that you don't know who they're up against most of the time, unless you see the video on Twitter. But you don't know who they're up against, and they're playing against themselves. So you can either be like a glass half empty or a glass half full kind of guy. It just depends on who you are.